We should be live now, or it's starting to go live.
Okay, dope. We good?
I'm going to pull it up as well if you'd like.
Okay, I'm gonna pull it up too because there's a chat and stuff. Yeah.
Then we can both read the chat. Make sure
should be live.
Sound is
should
good.
be live now, or it's starting to go live. Okay, dope. We good? I'm going to pull it up as well if you'd like.
It's not on mine. It always opens
Okay,
up two on mine. I don't know why.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let me. Oh, okay.
And
All right, cool. I'm in.
nice.
Yo, what up, Chief?
I'm going to quickly go into the edit video and do a couple of quick things. Yeah, so I'm here with Flex Gods, the channel Flex Gods tonight. We have not talked. We talked like a little bit on and off in Instagram and in like live chats and stuff, but we haven't shot a video together, and we haven't probably had this long of a conversation that we're about to have. I don't even know how long it's been since we last did it on my channel. Quite
That
some
was
time.
a while ago. I think that was like a year ago or something, right? At least a year, maybe around there, but
yeah. So, so I think we've both been kind of wanting to do this for a while and just kind of check in. How's the last year been for you? What have you, I know right before we turned on the camera, we were starting to talk a little bit about, you were kind of, last time we talked, you were like really pretty brand new. Like you just like a couple months into it. Now you have sort of like a year and a half under your belt. What do you feel like you've learned? Like, where do you feel like your head is at with all of the stuff that's happened?
I feel pretty good. I feel like I learned a lot. Kind of like how you were saying, it's like the most learning you do happens at the very, very beginning. So I feel like when we kind of talked, I was kind of going through those motions, because when we talked, I was learning about buying collections. Like I bought like a handful of collections, and then I was like grading them and kind of like submitting them and then like selling those. So I had done that like 3 times or something like that last time we talked. And now I've done it like, a year's worth of it. So it's been pretty good. But
what do you feel like you've learned? Are you able to like distill some of it down into like, points that you can articulate, or does it feel like it's you haven't reflected on it in that way?
I haven't really reflected on it in that way, to be real with you. I'm kind of just in the process of like, it's just buy cards, sell some of those cards, use that money to buy more cards, and I just kind of keep going. The one thing that I've like really paid attention to at the end of the day is I've owned, the thing that's crazy to me is now I've owned cards or like that I've never thought I would ever own. Do you know what I mean? Like to be on that like level of like, just being on leveling up over and over and over again feels pretty crazy to me. Like, so that's
the process that you've learned, is how to, because you're leveling up in the sense you're not necessarily putting that much more money into it.
1 second. I think someone said I sound quiet, so let me turn up my mic really quick. Or is it on mine, or?
I can hear you. It could be me. I don't know. I can hear you though. Let's see.
Should I turn it up a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I pay attention to the chat a lot on these.
But, no, you see it, man. That's good.
Okay, I'll turn it up. Is that loud for you, or is that good?
That sounds good too. Like I could hear it before, but it might be even better now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone said,
chat, let me know.
I sound quiet, so let me turn up my mic really quick. Or is it on mine?
It sounds good to me. Okay, anyways, what were you saying?
Yeah, so it sounds like you've sort of figured out how to grow your collection through like buying and selling. So rather than putting like a lot more money or capital in from your job or like outside life, you're learning how to buy and sell to then put that money into like bigger and bigger cards. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. The main goal is, ever since I started, the main goal is like buy a collection. Maybe it cost me $300, turn that $300 into like 1,000, pretty much put all that 1,000 back. I'm at the point now where I'm actually thinking about quitting my job. So we'll see. But it's also different because it's like I live in New Mexico, so it's like the housing's a little bit cheaper here, and then I like don't use a lot of money for like month to month, so I'm very frugal in that way. So
you're thinking about going full-time Pokemon.
I almost, in a way, I almost have been for a minute. It's a lot of sports cards too. Like I don't want to like discount the amount, because sports cards money is, I want to say it's significantly higher than Pokemon. Like I feel like sports is a lot more liquid, and it's at the end of the day, it's weird, but sports cards is so much easier for me to let go than Pokemon cards. Like I don't know why, but yeah, like I had like a Stephen Curry auto, and I was like, I'm gonna get rid of this right now. Like I'm not even like, but then with like some Pokemon, even like just like random EX cards, I'm like, I kind of like this card. Like I don't want to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think what's hard for me with sports is I don't like the art, or I rarely like the art. Mm-hmm. So I think I feel a lot less connection, even though I'm a huge sports fan and I'm a huge fan of like the player. Mm-hmm. I have less of a connection to the specific card. Like just because the card is like national treasures and I'm supposed to think it's like really expensive and great, mm-hmm. I have no connection to that card. And the art, like some of the patches can be really cool. Mm-hmm. So like if I saw this Kevin Garnett patch that was, I love Kevin Garnett because I'm a big Celtics fan, and he was amazing for us for not too long, but he basically won us those championships, or the one championship. We should have won the second, but there's this great like Kevin Garnett patch that had like the W and the O of like the jersey on it, and it was just this huge patch, and he was like yelling on it, and it looked really sweet. Like that seemed like a kind of special, unique card. Whereas it feels to me, and again, you know, I'm definitely not a sports expert, and I'm not looking at tons and tons of sports cards all the time, but it feels to me a little bit like, meh. Like it's really cool to have the patch and to have the autograph, but there's a lot of those autographs and a lot of those patches, so you can kind of get like you can kind of replace it a little bit easier, it feels like, for me. But maybe the art doesn't do as much. I don't know. Do you relate to that at all, or does it feel like it's something different for you?
I relate. The one thing that weighs heavy is the concept. Like you said, like the player, like the concept of the player weighs heavy, but most of the time it's just like a generic picture of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and it's like, okay, it's not that cool. The ones, have you seen from what are they called? The from downtown inserts?
No.
Those are really cool. Those are nice because they're case hits too. So it's like out of every hobby box, there's one, or like out of every case of hobby boxes. So that's like 10 cases. There's one of those inserted, and the art is really cool. So I think the market's catching up with those, like Kabooms and from downtowns. And I like those.
Kabooms, I know. Yeah.
But I don't really, for some reason, it's just so much easier to move. Like they just feel like there's less weight in my mind, and I'm not really sure why that is. Because for me, I'm like, I have a melodic PSA 8 that I'm like, okay, it's an 8, it's whatever. Like a melodic EX, and I'm like, it's an 8, but I'm like, I really like this card, and it's kind of like low pop, and I kind of don't want to get rid of it until I at least have a 9. Like I don't know why it's like.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, I really do. There are certain eras in Pokemon where we don't know how much there's going to be. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like it's like a PSA 8 first edition WotC holo, which there's tons of probably already, and you're seeing like hundreds sell all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, but if it's like a very kind of, you know, middle generation kind of oddball card, and you're like, I don't know how hard it's going to be to get that 9 or 10. You know, I think it makes sense, particularly when it's not for that much money. Like if I'm getting $50-$60 for that card, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to replace it, that doesn't really like, I'm not enthusiastic about giving that up. If someone's offering me 5,000, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a different story. And it's like with sports cards too. It's just, I don't know if it's just inbred in the what's the word? Like the culture of it all. Sports cards is very like, get this card, flip it, move it. Like sports cards is really, really like that. So I almost feel like that's part of the culture, as opposed to Pokemon, which is feels a lot more collector-y, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I super feel you on the middle EX era cards. I've had so much trouble moving those. I don't think I've moved any of them, honestly. I kind of just keep everyone I get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you're saying you're having trouble, just so the audience understands exactly what we're talking about, what we mean is like emotionally, it's hard for us to give them up, not trouble in terms of like illiquidity, like like that people wouldn't want to buy it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm super attached to all that stuff.
Although some of the stuff can be fairly illiquid too, some of the oddballs. So it work both ways.
Yeah,
but
no, exactly.
This month in the Patreon, I'm gonna go over scarcity and liquidity a little bit, and I went through all of the I went through hundreds of cards to see how many were on the market, how many sold in the last 90 days. And it's really interesting to see kind of what is coming up for sale at what prices, and then how much of those cards are actually selling.
Yeah.
It'll be a really interesting thing to track over time, which is the plan. But it's definitely what you would imagine, that there's, some of those, middle eras, there's very little. Selling, very little selling, and also very little out there.
Yeah, that's the general consensus. I mean, ever since I started, and you start researching, you're like, oh, what's low pop and what's this?
Yeah.
And it's like, it always points towards that. So it's interesting to see like where it truly goes. I'm excited. Honestly, I need to subscribe to your Patreon. I've been meaning to do that. I'm going to do that after this.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I need to remember. I'm going to do it now. but
yeah, I had someone tell me that like I really should just do it through YouTube, and because so many people don't want to like do an extra step of like having to go sign up for Patreon and find the Patreon and put their stuff in, and that the join YouTube just works so much better. But I kind of like having like the community out like on Patreon and through Discord. But yeah, I don't know. It's the age of the internet. Everyone wants things to be like as easy and efficient for them as humanly possible.
Yeah, exactly. Just one click. I know, because literally, like, if you were on the YouTube one, I'd literally just be like, I'm gonna do it right now. It takes 2 clicks, but I do have to make a Patreon and all that stuff. So
yeah,
but no, that's cool though.
So how do you feel like? So when you got into it, it was this really crazy kind of boom period. Like, how do you feel about the overall market when you got in it? And then how are you feeling about it right now? And in terms of doing what you're doing, do you feel like you can still be successful in this market? Has it changed what you need to do? Has it changed like what you're buying? Like, what's that process been like for you?
For me, so when I first started, I thought the market was slow, but I don't understand. I still, just from listening to you and other guys who were in the market, it almost like, it seems when I started, it was like, maybe it was like this. And then I started when it was in this upwards trend somewhere, not like the crazy upward spike, but like the somewhere around here. You know what I mean?
Do you remember when you started? Like which month?
So I started, let's see. Do you remember when Hidden Fates came out or no?
You started a while ago. Oh, I forgot that. Because I think when we had talked, you had already been in it then 6 months or so.
I was in it, but I wasn't in it because I was into the modern stuff for a while. Like it was like by him.
You were in it. So you were in it like early 2020.
Something like that. That sounds right.
Yeah, early 2020. And then I think you and I probably talked very late summer, right, as Logan Paul was getting into the hobby.
Yeah, I think it was, somewhere around there. I started early 2020 sounds about right, because I remember before COVID hit, I bought a Skyridge collection binder for like $400, and then I was scared to buy it because I was like, well, with like COVID, what happens there? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, are these cards gonna just all be worthless because of like a crazy situation? I remember that, so it was definitely before that.
So basically what happened for people out there is that in the beginning of 2020, and even a little bit before the beginning of 2020, so Shiny GX came out quite a bit before, which is the Japanese Hidden Fates version. That was very popular. I did see some movement after that. Sets like, interestingly, like the gyms, the gym challenge, gym heroes started to move up. And we did, so prices kind of like very, very slowly moved up for about 4 years. And then in 2020, and sort of the end of 2019, prices started going up like quite a bit more. And I think from the first half, from 2020, the beginning of 2020 to when Logan Paul came in the hobby, which was in October, November sort of area, prices went up about 20 to 30% to 50% in some cases. So there was already like a very significant like move up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Logan Paul came in, and that's when you saw like some 5x things, 10x things like very quickly. But there were some things, and there were some things that had already 5, 6, 7x even before Logan. This is something that people don't say because people don't actually follow the numbers, but everyone's like Logan Paul caused the mania, caused the bubble, but actually there were a number of items that had already, 4 or 5x, and a number of items that had already gone up 50, 60% even before Logan Paul came in. But
yeah,
Logan
that makes sense.
Exploded even more. So it sounds like you got in the beginning-ish and as it was starting to go up. So you got in a pretty good time.
It sounds like it, yeah. If this gives you a perspective at all, my first slab that I ever bought was a first edition. It was non-hollow Vaporeon PSA 10. I got it for like $70. And I know now it's around like $250. So I don't know like if that gives you it was sitting at 70 and I was like, I'm just gonna buy it right now. Like does that line up?
Yeah. Non-hollow Vaporeon PSA 10 first edition.
Mm-hmm.
$70. Yeah. I think so. That card, I'm trying to think. So that the hollow of that card was probably selling for about 800-ish, because that was always the most expensive.
Mm-hmm.
That and the Snorlax, because the Vaporeon's very, very low pop. And that kind of makes sense then that the non-hollow would be somewhere in around there.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to think of how high that got. I want to say those cards got like $500, $400 at the peak. I'm not really sure though.
They did. I was tempted to sell mine, but I was like, I got it as kind of like, oh, Vaporeon was my first hollow card, so I'm gonna make it my first slab card. And then I was like, I don't want to get rid of it. So I remember them peaking at 450, somewhere around there. It's crazy.
Like, emotionally, like, where's all that movement leave you?
What do you mean?
Like, how do you feel about like it must be like for someone kind of new into it. So like I've been through like multiple market, like I've owned stocks since I was like 14, and I've seen like I've lost like 40% of the value of my stuff like multiple times in my life. Mm-hmm. So, but for someone who's like a little bit younger and is kind of like, really engage in a market and then sees prices go up to like $500 on something, it starts at 70, it goes up to 500, and then it comes back to like, 200, 250 or whatever. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that? Like,
I feel okay about it. I mean, I'm up like 3x for me, like before any of this Pokemon card stuff, I was working like a no cursing, right? We're on YouTube. I was just working like a dead end job. So it was like one of those things where it's like make enough money, pay for rent, chill, try to do art things, kind of, you know what I mean? Like work on that. And then so finding something like this, it's like, oh, like it feels good. And honestly, it's like watching people who have been in it like you, and then like Dan from Catch 'em All, like just seeing your guys' perspective makes me feel not stressed on it. Like obviously I regret not just everything I had at that moment during that peak just being like, all right, it's gone, I'll get it back later, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you still kind of believe in it long term, or feel comfortable sort of like long term, and like that you can still make a business out of this, including with sports. It doesn't shake like your confidence in that.
It doesn't at all. I mean, obviously you have those thoughts. I think about it sometimes because I'm like, what if Pokemon doesn't carry into the next generation? And then what if it's just us and that's it? But in a way, I have a lot of faith, because I mean, I have my little brother's perspective, and he's like, he just started high school and he likes Pokemon. He has friends who like Pokemon. And I think it really does translate into the future. Like, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be as big as for our generation, but it's still there. It exists. And also too, have I told you this story? Well, I was live with somebody. I was telling them this story, but I was at the card shop the other day. And so we're just chilling, and this mom walks in, and she walks in with her son. This kid's like 11 years old, right? And he was looking through all the cards. He was like super excited. He was buying a bunch of bulk cards. He was like buying evolutions and stuff. And then he's like talking, and he's like, oh, do you have any like Aquapolis cards, to the owner? And then he's like, oh, no. And he's like, oh, Aquapolis is like really cool. It's like really rare. And he's like, yeah, they're kind of expensive, but I really want to get some. And it's like, for me, like hearing like a kid that young who's like super into cards that hard already at that age wanting an Aquapolis card is like, You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see. I think that like non-sports cards have been sort of like laughed at for a long time. Like it's been like sports cards are so much better. Like people are so much more interested in that. There's such much bigger market. That's the only thing that really has any sort of like high end, type thing. I think Magic, which was a lot more expensive than Pokemon, for a long time, their sort of high end cards was like looked as like kind of looked down on mostly, and as kind of like not a real like significant thing that only like a few kind of like weird people were like super into, and not like a generational huge thing like sports. And I'm interested to see. I made a video about it like freaking year and a half ago, probably now, but like, can Pokemon be cool, or can Pokemon be like, or like collecting Pokemon or displaying Pokemon in like a grown man's house? Like, that's something that can be like, acceptable and fun and like enjoyable. And is that, part of it is a culture thing of can non-sports pop culture collectibles, can they be, is that something that you should be like ashamed of having, or is that something that's like that is fun and enjoyed by groups of people? And I think a lot of that has to do with a bunch of just like BS and nonsense, with people telling you like what you should collect, what you shouldn't collect, what you should enjoy, what you shouldn't enjoy. And I think that there's just so much more genuine interest in like Marvel, Pokemon, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, in many cases than there are even sports. And yet it doesn't reflect that. A lot of these markets have historically not reflected that. You know what I mean? And that's kind of interesting. Like the amount of like how much kids and adults love these types of things from our generations, but the prices that the highest memorabilia or the highest items got, as compared to like those $5 million sports cards, that many cards that are over $1 million of the same rarity. It's just interesting. And I'm wondering where that's all going to settle like over the next 20, 30 years. But it's a long-term thing to be watching. Not something I'm going to have in the short term, but
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting to bring up, because when you bring it up, I do think about them. I feel like there's a lot more people who are into that, like not nerdy stuff, but like in the like that type of field. There's more people who like that stuff than like sports. You know what I mean?
Certainly a ton.
It's at least,
you know what I mean? Who like both, like I really like, I like both. You know what I mean? And like I don't. So it's interesting. But all of that to me will really impact sort of the long term. Like, is this a fad? Because I mean, what you're really looking at is Pokemon having sort of a fad moment, or is this sort of a really good, just one of many establishing, moments, that there are going to be many of these types of moments in the future. Now, the pandemic was a rare event that caused things to go up way faster than they probably ever will again, potentially. But and that's all collectibles, it's everything. But just the interest level going up for these types of things, will that continue to build, generation on generation? And, games like MetaZoo and all these other games we're seeing, are those also, or some of them, and maybe not MetaZoo, maybe not Flesh and Blood, but maybe others or whatever, that there's a larger field. I know we have like CGC and PSA putting tons of money betting on that people are going to want these things for the foreseeable future, because they're greatly in their operations and they're grading all these other card games. So I don't know.
I don't know either, honestly. I guess none of us ever know. I mean, I have a question, because how long have you been doing Pokemon for?
Like 2016.
16?
Yeah, is when I've been sort of like, going at it like, fairly intensely. 2016. Yeah, so like 6 years roughly.
Okay. Was that the Pokemon Go, or is that a different time period?
That was around Pokemon Go, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna ask, like, because I really been wanting a perspective on like the whole market as a whole, from like someone who's been in it like that 10, you know what I mean? Like that, because it's interesting, because it almost seems like it's like something happens and then it's like, because the only information I have is like people talking about the Pokemon Go bubble. So I've been researching that, and it's like they're like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, Pokemon Go, like this is another fad moment, or like not fad moment, but it's almost like it seems like Pokemon has a lot of those moments, but there's always one that just from previous like experiences, like there's always another moment, you know. So it's just curious if there is, you know, gonna be another
I mean,
one.
it's a little hard for me to imagine with like my generation how, like, if you didn't like start falling in love with it and collecting again now, like, what is it going to take? Now there's going to be people always trickling in the hobby.
Yeah,
we probably had like 100,000 people to maybe 1 million people, and easily millions when you include just like casual people just like buying a booster box or two. When we talk about like modern, but like I would say like like probably a good 100,000 like very serious like intense people, probably, you know, just throwing out random numbers, speculative numbers, like join the hobby in a very short amount of time, all going after the same exact booster boxes and cards at the exact same time. It's hard for me to imagine an event with my generation that it would bring like that many people in all at once. What I would expect is more just like gradual growth in the hobby with people spending power gradually growing over time, like with my generation. It would be interesting though if there was another event or something that brought like a huge group back. It would also be interesting if there is a big event like in a younger generation.
That's what I'm curious about too, with the younger generations.
Yeah, so. what is that going to look like? Like, are they not going to be in it for like 15 years, and then is there going to be something that's going to bring them back in 15 years? You know, kind of like our generation. We'll see.
Yeah, no, because I talk to kids and they're like, some kids started when like it was like platinum, or like, you know what I mean? That's when they played their first Pokemon game, and that's when they got their first Pokemon card. So that almost adds like another like they're not going to be ready to like buy cards at this like level until they're like in 10 years. So it's interesting to see how that goes down. But then I wonder if they're already brought into this and they're just like, once they get that like paycheck or they get that, then they're like gonna enter, you know. It's interesting.
It's also so interesting that they're going to be in it, like we are establishing it way more. Like our parents obviously didn't care at all about Pokemon. They just like bought it because we like really wanted it and we were begging them for it. But like now, like there's a number of people in our generation that are like establishing a very significant market, just like sports cards were established, we could say. And then kids, you know, when you collected sports cards as a kid, you knew or you heard of cards that were like very expensive and very valuable. Even if you were in like a junk wax era at the time. You know, these rookie cards, when we were kids, like you might have heard adults say, you know, keep them in good condition because they could be worth something someday, these types of things. But there was no like adult, you know, Pokemon card market where people were, you know, buying, selling, and trading. You couldn't go to these like crazy collecticons and see all of this behavior from adults. So you get a kid like this Aquapolis kid who's talking about like what's, you know, these types of old sets like that wasn't even possible for us as kids. So that's actually adds another layer, which could make it really desirable for kids and like entrepreneurial type kids who also want to like start businesses and like wheel and deal and have kind of that sort of like fun of like building a valuable collection and you know, making some money and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I could see that too, honestly, especially with the kids. Like you're a little kid, you're 10, you're like, oh, an Aquapolis card, that's expensive, I will never own that. And then you get that like paycheck and you're like, oh, then they have that like, oh, these types of certain cards, they like when they dug in deep, they were like coveting those cards. And then I don't know, it could just add another level. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes. And then the one thing I'm concerned about is like the games. Have you kept up with the games at all? I feel like the games is kind of important.
Yeah, not too much. I mean, I hear about it, but I don't like study it. What should I know?
Nothing necessarily. It's just like I don't know if it's just like our generation being kind of like, oh, they don't put that much effort into the games anymore, I'm gonna be bummed about it, because that's a lot. I hear that a lot where they're like, it just doesn't feel the same. So I don't know if they're just being like kind of like old head about it, or if it's actually like they're not putting that much effort into the games, because I feel like the games is what got me into it. And so that's like, if they make the games capture that specific audience of like kids to play Pokemon, then I feel like that adds another level, you know? I feel like that's almost like the games being really good and accessible is almost like could be one of those things that keeps it within generation, like lets it go through, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, we didn't have like Fortnite and Minecraft, so like everybody played Pokemon, the Pokemon video game when I was in 5th grade. And then I guess like people went to like RuneScape and World of Warcraft and
Yo, can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me now? Sorry, it's crazy.
oh, you just froze for a sec.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe I froze, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, but I guess we're back.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, the competition with the video games today, there's just so much more, like the kids have like so much better video games. And so I feel like the Pokemon games, they're kind of the same in a lot of ways as they were when, you know, I know they like added the wild area, and I know that they you know, the games obviously look, you know, they have this world that you can walk in and they look better, but it's like the same fight sequences, the same types of, they haven't really advanced it too much.
Yeah, I mean, Arceus Legends looks dope, so we'll see how that is. But I don't know. I haven't touched the last game I played. I tried to play Sword and Shield. And I got to the 4th gym and I kind of just was like, I forgot about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then before that, I didn't play since Black and White, something like that. So I don't know. I feel like the games have a strong impact, but we'll see. I don't really have like a real perspective on that.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see like what gets kids in over time. It's stuff that, it's why like the demand side is just so hard to predict long term. And that's like the risk when you're buying into something or investing into something. If you care about the money and it's based on demand, it's not based, and the demand is based on like what people like and not what people need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always that risk.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true for the high-end art market too. It's true for anything that is art or anything that's enjoyed that isn't like your house or food.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I want to get into high-end art so bad. I think that'd be so dope.
Yeah, dude. You just got to build up. You got to transition that Pokemon into like, now you're starting to buy like collectible type art pieces. And then you got to transfer that collectible type art piece into like Monets and Picassos that you'll just like.
Oh, imagine. I want a Warhol or a Basquiat so bad. I know that's like some next level, but I'm like, that would just be so cool to have.
You're young, you could easily get there.
We'll see. Hopefully. Just got to grind it out, right?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you something, but I forgot. But yeah, do you get like go into the art market at all?
No. Okay. All my money these days is like collectibles and stocks. And I'm starting to save a little bit more for like a house, because I do want to purchase property at some point.
Yeah, same. I want to be able to like just like move enough cards to be able to like put it all down on a house and like do the mortgage stuff. We'll see how it goes.
My dad buys art. He's in the art.
What kind of art does he do?
So both my parents paint, actually. My mom was a professional at one point in her life, and my father now loves painting. But he also is a huge buyer and admirer of art. And I'm addicted to buying cards. He's addicted to buying art at the moment. What does he buy? He buys a lot of local artists. So I'm on Martha's Vineyard right now, and he buys a lot of like the art from some artists in this community, and buys some like world renowned, like, you know, not like masters necessarily, but world renowned isn't the way to put it. World known, you know, people who are like fairly known, well established artists, people who most people probably wouldn't know their names, but like within like art communities, they would be names. You know, he's not buying like Rembrandts and Monets and Cezannes and things like that and Renoirs, but he's sort of the level, a few levels below, but he really enjoys it.
Yeah.
We do actually have a cousin who actually deals in those types of paintings. He doesn't actually own them, but he has a business that deals in that. So,
okay, that's cool. Yeah, because I don't know if I told you, I went to school. Well, I went to art school for painting. Actually, that's when that's what I first started with.
awesome.
And then so, yeah, dude.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It'd be interesting just to like, because I mean, I still want to do like art stuff. I don't know. I do a lot. I dabble in a lot of art stuff, so I still want to like figure out a way to like have a second.
Get on those cards, man. You should try to do like MetaZoo art or something, or join one of these new card games and become an artist.
Oh, that'd be kind of dope. That's smart. That's a move. That's kind of a mogul move.
100%.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, dude. No, art is really cool. I've always like
art, like animated. You do that sort of like art, that type of art, or no?
No, I did a lot of the like fine art, like it was like abstract conceptual art. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I did a lot of that stuff. No, literally, like it was like, oh, let me tell you. Well, like one thing I did, it was kind of like a joke, but I don't know how to explain it. But so basically, it was like, have you ever been New American Paintings? It's like a painting magazine.
No.
Okay, well, like my teacher was like, oh, like she was like applying to it. All these people are applying to it, and I applied. And basically, my painting was me. We went to an LA, like all these like like art galleries and stuff in LA. And so basically, all I did was take pictures of me holding up like random things to the painting, and then I printed photos of that and I submitted to the magazine, and it was like stuff like that. I don't really know how to explain it. It was just very conceptual, but it's also making fun of the institution and like work and the concept of like ownership and all that stuff. But it was like that kind of stuff. I don't know.
That's awesome, man.
I have mixed feelings about all of it. I'm like, art is so weird to me. But
yeah, I mean, it's very it's amazing how, like, obviously it's very subjective, but it is amazing how people have such different opinions of like the same piece of art. Like if you can get people's like honest opinions, oftentimes they're very like jaded by like the price of the art or like a famous artist or not. And people are like, ooh, like that's an expensive piece. It must be like really good. It looks great. When it's like just like a few clumps, and like if you're just being honest, you'd be like, I don't see why that should be worth that. It's amazing. I mean, obviously I talked a lot about market manipulation this year, and about the fine line between market manipulation and marketing. There's a lot of marketing that goes in the high-end art market around like the up and coming artists, around you should buy this person's better than this person, because it's so hard to determine what is good art, what is better art than anything else. Though my dad would argue, he'd give me like 10 points of why this one's better than that one. And
dude, that's funny. Yeah, no, I love, like, for me, I love the, like, I don't want to say dumb shit, but I love the shit where it's like, oh, this sold for $1 million. It's literally like a white painting. And I'm like, oh, that is so sick.
Yeah, amazing marketing.
I think it plays a lot in, like, I think what I respect is like how the artist somehow established himself within this artistic community and elevated himself and this type of work to that level. And I think it's so sick. And in a way, it's almost I like that stuff. It almost feels like it's making fun of the art market in the art world. And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that this stuff is a lot more. It's a lot more than just the art. It's the artists and how much, and the connections he has, and the connections his people have. I mean, look at the NFT market as a phenomenal example of this, right? I mean, you have projects from very famous influencers that look like absolute crap, in my opinion, that are selling for tons and tons of money because of the influencer, because of the celebrity, the person behind it, these types of things. So it's to deny that that's a part of it is to deny the reality. But I also think that like people are also too harsh on that, because value comes in all sorts of ways. So a really good example is like, I bought like Rudy's MetaZoo promo because I think Rudy is hilarious and I'm just like a fan of his channel and it means something to me. So I bought into a person's celebrity, right? Like it, and so I think when you think of it that way, when people really like someone or appreciate what they've done, buying into their sort of project or their sort of thing, even if like aesthetically it's not that great, but just for what it means to them, makes a lot of sense on a human level, but I do think that the creator has a responsibility not to take advantage of that and mistreat their audiences. And that's where you get into some shitty stuff where people are making like $10 million off of people. Like someone already has $200 million, makes $10 million off of a bunch of like middle class and lower socioeconomic.
Yeah, for real.
You're an asshole.
Yeah, for real. It's a hectic slope, honestly. I always worry about that with my YouTube too, where I'm like, am I like giving information that's good? I try really hard. Honestly, you're one of the people who made me think about like the concept of what you put out affects other people. And so I've always because I hype up the EX market, but I like the EX cards, you know what I mean? And that middle era cards. But then I'm like, am I like that thing as a content creator? Not that I don't know, you know what I mean? That concept of responsibility is interesting.
We all have opinions, and I think that it's fair to share an opinion. I think that it's important to make it known that it's an opinion, and then also like focus if possible on like the data and the facts to back up your opinion. Mm-hmm. But of course, like what someone says, like the more respected a person is in this community, the more irrational weight is going to be put on their voice. So for example, like, S. M. Pratt or could come out and just say some, and I'm not saying he ever has, but he could just come out and say some garbage, like logic about something. And you'd have a number of people who would just like listen to it probably without thinking, purely because it's him. Now there's some reasonableness to that because it's like, well, he's been very successful. He's very smart. And so even though I don't understand exactly what he's saying, it's probably right. Like people kind of make those leaps of logic, but it gets into these dangerous places. And, you've had a very successful channel, and there is a certain amount of responsibility if people like may act on what you do, I think. But you have to sort of be your own guide on like where that line is. But it is annoying when people like deny, like there are people who just like, they came out and just denied that they had an impact on the market this year. And it's just like, oh God.
Yeah, that's funny, honestly.
We could take some questions.
Yeah, I'm down to run it, however.
It's going to be a little bit on the shorter side tonight of a stream.
Yeah, I think I got 20 minutes left. I'm down to do this again too, whenever, honestly. It's chill.
Yeah. And I'll keep going a little bit for you guys just to kind of answer some stuff. But yeah, we should do this. And you should also come on when we were talking before with like other people too, to hang out.
I'm down. That sounds fun. We also have to make a video, like some sort of edited video.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. I'm trying to think of what clickbait thumbnail I need to make for it. Sometimes it starts with the concept of a thumbnail. I feel like that's like better.
Yeah, take a look and see if there's any question you feel like answering or something interesting or a topic.
Okay, cool, for sure. I'm down.
I'm reading through. 3D Dynamics says, is there anywhere that even sells TCG cards or Martha's Vineyard? There is. There's one shop here, and I've actually been going to that shop since I was a little kid. And I talked to the guy and I told him, and he didn't seem too interested in me. He was like, oh, cool, man. Like everyone else I sold to. But I didn't tell him that I was a big collector or anything or was super interested. And I was just kind of making casual conversation with him. Checking out his prices,
What is Martha's Vineyard?
Oh, it's an island off of like Cape Cod in near Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Just an island where I've been living for the past year.
Who's the Pokemon World Bank C? Flex God tokens. That's funny. Jake has awesome painting like the one behind him. I don't know, not a lot of questions though, honestly.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, put them down. Let's see. Here's a someone says, okay, if a booster box is worth 1,000 right now, and in a year there are 100 times as many people in the hobby, does that make the booster box worth 100 times more? Or is that not how it works? So it's not how, so technically that could be how it works if the interest in that booster box stayed the same on a percentage basis. So if you had 100 times more people who had exactly 100 times more money, because it's actually people that don't matter. It's actually money that matters. So there's 100 times more money comes into the Pokemon hobby. If there was 100 times more money that was equally distributed across the product, including the product you're talking about, then technically, yes, it would go up 100 times value. Although nothing ever works that way. Nothing is ever that clean. You also have situations where you're going to have people who are holding that product who may or may not want to sell it. So if you have a lot of people who are holding a product that really want to sell, that price won't go up as fast. So it's why I always think about the items that you have. Are these items that are held majority collector or majority flipper, speculator, investor business? If it's majority flipper, speculator business, it's going to be much harder for that price to go up because you're going to have a lot more people constantly flipping it and selling it. So yeah, so it's very complicated to determine prices. It's why, we go through a bunch of like analytics in our Patreon, trying to, the more data you have, the more you can try to anticipate these things. But like, it's still, you can't really. I mean, you can get a little bit more accurate, with your predictions. Yeah, as Kaya says too, like, it's also like, will all those people continue to want to buy as the price goes up, or are there is the interest only at that low price? Because as soon as the price starts to go up, do people not want to buy it anymore? It's part of why some low end items can actually multiply more than high end items. So like like a good example, like a card, let's just throw a card like this. Obviously there's there's so many of these cards out there right now. You can get them for so cheap, but a card like this I think you can get them for like $1 to $3 or whatever. This going to $10, like everyone can afford this card now. Everyone could afford this card at $10. So you have a massive potential buyer pool for this card from a price point perspective. So if there was humongous demand all of a sudden for this card, it would very easily get to $10 because everyone would be able to still afford it. Whereas if you take how many people right now in the current hobby can afford a $300,000 PSA 10 first edition Charizard? For that to go from $300,000 to $1 million plus, the buyer pool is going to be much smaller. And obviously there are much less of those cards, so it may happen. But hopefully that makes sense to people about there might be a ton of people who if they had that type of money would buy that Charizard and it would push it over $1 million, but they don't have that right now. Whereas everybody, if they want this card, can buy this card and push the price up. Does that make sense? Anything you want to? Any of that?
No, you're good at articulating this stuff. Honestly, you're like really good at it. No, that was like perfect. I think that sums up everything. So you said you've been doing stocks since you were like 14.
Yeah.
Is that where you like kind of like have all your economics knowledge and like?
Yeah, stocks and interestingly poker. As I played a lot of chess and I played a lot of poker growing up. Mm-hmm. And like the game theory in poker and like honestly making bets in poker, like that sort of thing feels very similar. Your risk management. You basically have a portfolio in poker, which is your chips, and you're betting on each hand. You're kind of investing in each hand. And so the reason I was very good at poker was because I'm a good investor, actually, because I've viewed my hands as like investments. Do I want to invest? How much do I want to invest? What's the downside risk? What's the implied odds, which are, I might have to invest like a little bit of money into this, but my potential to win here is very high and I'm going to make a lot more than I put in. So it's a good investment. That's exactly how you want to look at stocks or anything, interestingly. So,
okay.
Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean, my stock interest came from my father, really. But I've always had a natural interest in entrepreneurship. But my father was a financial advisor and was investing for me at a very young age, and then teaching me stuff at a young age. Yeah. How about you? Like, where is your sort of entrepreneurial like spirit come from?
For me personally, I was just growing up. I honestly want to say it came from skateboarding in a way, you know, where it's like you start skating, you kind of see the world, and you're like, oh, you can literally just do whatever you want, and that kind of helped. And it's at the end of the day, I knew I'd never wanted to work a 9 to 5. I was like I cannot do this shit. Like, I do not want to be stuck. I do not want to have a boss. I do not want to have someone tell me what to do. I'm like very bad at like someone tells me to do something like nah. I'm like nah, I do not. I'm not gonna do that. So I just knew it's just like for me. I always thought it would be art, and I was like just sifting through that, and then it's like somehow the card thing just kind of happened, and in a way I feel like that's given me the confidence to be like, oh, like I can go do all these other things now. It just all clicked at once, which it's kind of interesting. Because yeah, no, I was gonna ask you about stocks. I was like, yeah, like I do want to understand stocks more and get into that. Me and my sister have been talking about it a lot, so we've been like discussing back and forth, but I don't necessarily understand. It's like so different than something that's like tangible that I've spent so much time with, that I grew up with, you know what I mean? Because just from watching you, and it's like putting your money into cards is like fine, but also it's like the stock market makes so much more sense if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can, right, like you can put your money, we're not financial advisors here, but like you can put your money into things like, you know, safe index funds where you're owning many companies, and kind of like all the largest companies, S&P 500, 500 largest companies. Or you can pick individual stocks. So if you feel like I really like this company, I really like, you know, one term that is used a lot. So Warren Buffett is sort of, you know, in my mind, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Ben Graham, people of that sort of ilk, to me, are the best investors. They're by far and away so, and it's not even that they're smart, you know, and they are very smart people, or, you know, but they're not, these people are not like, you know, what they're doing, like anyone, like not anyone, but a lot of people, in my opinion, could do, which is it's more about having principles and incredible work ethic and interest. Like you have to be obsessed with this stuff because you have to be poring over data and companies. Like what Warren Buffett did when he was young is he literally, and Warren Buffett will say he was a better investor when he was young and had less money. And what he would do is he would sit there and just pour over data, and he would read everything that he could on each company and look at all of their sales, and, you know, as much information as they could possibly gather about that company. And then he would choose, you know, whether to buy a portion of that company, buy the company, you know, outright, buy a majority share of that company, et cetera. And that's how he sort of successfully built. And, you know, there's also lots and lots of luck involved. Like there was for me in Pokemon, there's lots and lots of luck involved, but it's fundamentally your value investing. So you're looking for things that have really good, and the concept is a moat. So, and the best way to understand what really a moat is competitive advantage over other things. So it's something, this company has some sort of competitive advantage over its competitors, that it's going to, that this company is going to outperform and out-succeed and has an upward trajectory sort of into the future. And ideally the stock is cheaper than its competitors, and or about the same as its competitors, and thus it's good value. So when we look at cards, a value investor is going to take a look at like the competitors to Pokemon are going to be like other collectibles you could buy. Within Pokemon, it's going to be like, what am I going to buy within Pokemon? I have tons and tons of options. What are the supply and demand fundamentals of a certain card that's going to give this card a competitive advantage over other cards in the long term, in terms of people wanting that item, and then they're not big enough supply to meet that demand. So that's but it's all the same. It's the same instincts, I think, for all these things.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna ask, because I've been like just slowly researching stocks, like just kind of dipping my toes in, just trying to understand it. And it's like, in a weird way, I've been comparing it to cards. Like, it's like you research stocks and you research, it's like how you look at pop reports of cards and then you see, oh, this card seems under, like, at this price point compared to other cards of its similar stature. And then it almost seems like that. But I was like, in my head, I was like, is that the right way to think about it? Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think with companies, it can just be extremely hard to there's so many moving parts and factors. It can be extremely hard to pick companies, and so I think that picking individual stocks, historically, most people have done worse picking individual stocks than they have just buying these index funds. So, I think it's one of these things where it's like, you probably, like, most people should probably have like some money in index funds and some safer, more stable things. And even, again, not financial advisors, my opinion is what I personally do. You should have some things that it feels like, hey, if I end up being an idiot, which is definitely a high possibility, a reasonable possibility, I always feel that way about myself. Like, no matter how strong my convictions are, I always protect against myself and against my own instincts. So yes, I'm very aggressive and I buy into my stuff, but I always buy enough of something that is kind of going to offset that risk, so that if I lose everything in something that's more risky, or the majority of something that's more risky, I will be able to build back from where I'm at. So if I lost all my money, all my Pokemon money, everything, I would be able to build back, and it wouldn't necessarily affect my financial life that much in the long run. Mm-hmm. So I think that's all part of it. And you want to do the same thing with stocks. If I'm picking a single stock and I'm throwing all my money in that stock, particularly if it's like a Tesla or like a high flyer, stocks that seem to be going up like 12% one day, down 6% the next day, these heavily traded stocks, versus like a Berkshire Hathaway, which is a very thinly traded stock, where a huge day in Berkshire Hathaway is like 2.5%. That seems to be like an average, up or down. That seems to be like an average day or below average movement day in Tesla right now. It's like, what can you stomach? And I'm not saying one is a better buy than the other, but it's sort of like, what risk and movement can you stomach? And in Pokemon, you can see the same sort of stuff, right? You can see there are certain items or certain cards or certain things that are going to have greater risk and greater movement, but everything in Pokemon obviously has a lot of risk and can move a lot. And I think a lot of people learned that lesson this year, so yeah, you sort of just have to be comfortable with it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I want to ask you more economic questions. That's kind of where my head is at in terms of just like other stuff, because I really do want to get stocks, but then there's also like the whole macroeconomics thing. I don't even know where to start with that, like where we're at and like what happens, or like, you know what I mean? Especially with the whole inflationary, so many YouTube channels are talking about this too, and I'm like, damn, I should have paid attention during economics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I just like companies that I feel like, just have really, I don't know how much I want to go into it here, but this whole innovative technology, like when you're placing large bets on companies like ARK Investing, when you're placing very large bets on innovative technology, it's there's a huge potential gain on some of these things, but there's also a lot more risk on some of these things, because these are not in many cases like established companies, and in a lot of cases, a number of these companies are selling for like hundreds of times more than they should be selling based on just the profits they're making alone today. Because a lot of companies, they're trading at the future, like it's going to be the future. And we can see that in NFTs. We can see that in collectibles. We could see that this year in Pokemon, where a lot of people were buying these modern booster boxes, right? Modern booster boxes are a great example in Pokemon. They were buying these products because people were saying like, well, it's a sure thing. They're 100% going to go up in the future. Mm-hmm. And they could rocket to the moon any day, this week. And there's 100% of floor. I just bought a bunch of Chilling Reign at $72 a box, just to throw that up.
Sheesh.
So, when we're talking about all the cash back and all the, so it's and I know stores that are buying it for 86 right now, like distributor pricing. So it's just, Now in the long run, could that box recover and do well? But it's a there are a lot of comments, in my opinion, made on these stock channels that I'm seeing and made in the Pokemon world, people guaranteeing things and promising things that they can't, that could happen. And then one thing I'm hearing a lot of, and tell me if you're hearing a lot of this, and it does drive me a little crazy. People come on, they make a wrong call. They say they guarantee something and then it goes down. And then they say it's time in the market, not timing the market. I'm hearing this a lot.
So I've heard that before. Yeah.
They told someone buy a bunch of this. The person lost a lot of money. And then instead of saying, oops, like I shouldn't have guaranteed that, maybe if you hold it, it will go up. Maybe it won't. They say, well, you should have known it's your fault because it's not about timing the market, even though I told you that now is the time to buy and I've made 100 top 5 buy now invest videos. but it's your fault, viewer, who listened to me, because it's not about timing the market. You just need to have patience. You just need to hold it for many years. And it's like, that could end up being right. It could also end up being wrong. I think for me, it's $72 a box. I liked that price point and I like Chilling Reign and I want to open some of it too and have fun, and I can afford it. And I can afford for those boxes to go down to $50 and me to not be able to sell them. If they went to $50, that would actually be unheard of. The booster box is going to $72, although people out there right now are saying that's unheard of. No, that's not true. Like there were evolutions. People were fire selling them for under $80. Okay. So, just 3-4 years ago. So, the box is now $700, $600. So people are going to be like, well, Chilling Reign is going to be $600 in 4 years. Maybe. I mean, anything is possible, like with these crazy assets, but you just have to understand that all these guarantees and all these promises from people who say that they know and that they've been around, and nobody knows. Nobody can know that, sir. That I know they're wrong because nobody can know for sure. So end of that rant, but it's frustrating, and time in the market rather than timing the market is an absolutely fine saying that has a lot of merit when used the right way. And so just because you hear someone saying that, they might be using it in a way that I would absolutely agree. But, it's also dangerous to say, just buy this at a super inflated price and hold it for 5 years. It's like, it's terrible advice, right? I mean, there are items that you could have bought 6 months ago that may never get back to that price. You could hold them forever. So I don't know. What do you think of all that rant?
I agree. It's like, for me personally, I use so I have like a local Facebook Pokemon group, and I feel like I use that as the kind of like the barometer for not like for the situation, like not how we think about it, but just the general situation of people. And I see people like hoarding that shit. Like they hoard like everything modern, everything new, and they are under this impression that everything is gonna like 10x. Like I see them talk and they're like, I don't know. So I don't know like where all these YouTube videos, like of course we've seen the YouTube videos, but then it's like, it's just crazy that it's almost like the general perception that everything is going to stonk and everything's going to go 20x. And I think that's so misleading to the general public. And it's just, it kind of hurts to see in a way,
Yeah. I mean, I could see a lot of scenarios happening with this product, is the truth. So, I made a modern video right on it. And I say, for me, I can see a realistic scenario where this is a blip, these few months for some of these booster boxes. Pokemon stops printing. They shut it off. Truly. They don't reprint Battle Styles and Chilling Reign and anything else. There's a little bit of panic selling by businesses who over leverage right now, which is definitely happening. Like the people who are selling to me, they just like need to get out of this product. Like they owe credit cards and they need to get the hell out of it. Mm-hmm. Once that product gets absorbed at some of these prices, you may see it uptick back to a more stable, like $90 to $110. It's possible. And then from there, if Pokemon hobby kind of has a resurgence or kind of strengthens and in a year, 2 years from now, you could see these booster boxes going for 140, 150, even 200. And then 5 years from now, you could see them going for 300, 350, kind of like what a Burning Shadows did. But that would be like an absolute home run in my mind. And what has never happened before is there are all these people holding these boxes right now. That didn't happen for these older products that went up. Nobody was holding. Everyone was trying to sell them and open them all the time. Yeah, so people have to understand that there's probably more printed and more people holding. And so that's going to mean that your returns are going to likely be lower and there's a lot more danger. And now where that winds up, I'm not sure, because you don't need it to go to $300 to have some profit. But people also don't understand, like, do you have a business? Like, are you paying sales tax on that, or did you get it without sales tax? Like, are you selling off of eBay where you're gonna have to pay 10%? How are you gonna offload it? If you want to sell it all quickly, you may have to sell under the market. And so if the boxes are selling for 150 and then you're paying like $25 in like fees, so that's 125, and then you have to take like a $10 hit on each box. Now you're down to 115 and you bought them at like 110, 105, 195. Like, that's years that you've held that item and managed to not open it, which is hard because it's addicting and it's so easy to open. And then you only made like 5, 10, 15 bucks. It's like, that's realistic scenario. And then there's a third scenario where it freaking doesn't move at all. And you literally get stuck with it, and you have to sell at a loss or just keep holding for 10 years or whatever. So I don't know. It's, I think just that doesn't sell a video, or, that isn't like, that doesn't help people saying that I don't know. And it could be any of those scenarios. So
we should make that a video. It should just be like, the thumbnail is what's really going to happen with the Pokemon market. And it's just saying, I don't know. Nobody knows. That's it. That's a good YouTube video.
Like, we could walk through those trajectories and like why one would happen, why one wouldn't happen, to try and help people. But, nobody knows. And certainly these businesses have no idea. There's fire selling everything. They don't care. They're just trying to like survive to the next month. Most of these new Pokemon businesses. So,
I probably have to go soon. But one thing before I go is, what this makes me think about, like, so basically about the holding, I think that so many people are holding too, and no one's necessarily talking about that. Like, literally everyone and their mom, like, literally I've seen like moms be like, Pokemon box, buy and hold, like, and that's so weird. Like, when I started, nobody had that even when I started, when it was hot for Hidden Fates, nobody had this like idea of, I'm gonna buy a Hidden Fates thing and hold it. It was like, I'm gonna buy Hidden Fates and rip it for Charizard. I mean, obviously there are probably some people, but the fact that it's literally everybody I see like on groups are literally like, I'm going to Target. Wow, I found this ETB. I'm going to add it to my sealed collection, or I'm going to add it to my, I don't know. It's just interesting. There's so much being held right now. And then what else did I want to say? But no, I think that's a good YouTube video idea, honestly, if you want to do something like that. And we can go through, I like the concept of going through the scenarios and then just be like, at the end of the day, like, anyone who tries to sell you a guarantee, it's not. There is no guarantee. You have to just go with your intuition, and you kind of just have to develop your own intuition, and you learn your mistakes and you make your mistakes. And that's how you move on to the next level of doing something.
And you'll continue to make some mistakes, but it's minimizing them, and understanding the risk, like I pad myself, like, there's so many great opportunities, guys, that I only bought because I got them for 72, 73 bucks. A box, for example, I'm only buying slabs when they're dropping to like $8. I got a couple, I bought this slab for $1.50.
No way.
Yeah. This is obviously like just a random unfortunate auction steal, but like, the point is, like, I'm looking for like room so that if I'm wrong on something or something doesn't grow, I can actually just resell it at like market price, and I've already made a decent amount. You know what I mean? So, so that's the type of stuff that it's why in an environment like this, cash is king, because if you have the money and you're not super leveraged, you can be hunting those types of deals. You can be patient. You can be buying large collections right now. Like, there's a lot of good opportunity. So yeah. So thank you so much, man, for hanging out. Sorry you can't be on longer, but enjoy your tournament.
Yeah, I will. It'll be fun. Yeah, I wish we could talk more. I feel like we were just kind of starting to get into it, but it's all good. We'll talk soon. And then we'll keep in touch about making some sort of video. I do like that idea. I think it'd be good. I think it would do good on YouTube too, but it's also going to help everyone,
I'll leave you in charge of the what will do good on YouTube. We can make something clickbaity as a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm down. We'll figure it out. But I think that's a good concept. I think that's actually a really good starting point. So
sounds good, man.
All right. Later, dude. It was nice talking. We'll talk soon.
Take care, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, dude. Later.
All right, guys. Treble says Jake always finds impossible deals. Yeah, part of it is just like I like finding deals, so I like hunt a lot, and it's like fun. It's part of how I unwind. Like after a day, sometimes I'm just like, my girlfriend's watching, her like soap operas, and I'm hanging out, like looking for deals, sitting with her. That's how I unwind some days. So I'm going to hang out a little bit more, guys. So if any of you guys do have market questions, I'm happy to answer some specifics. I'm going to jump off at some point because I'm going to head over to we're doing a Patreon chat tonight for PWCC once a month. We all hang out. All the guys get together and hang out in there. And I actually have to place some bids potentially, or take another look at it. I'm actually going to pull it up on my computer here. I think we still have some time. Let's see when it ends. Yeah, still got 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. So down to hang out for another 30 minutes or so, probably. But yeah, Flex Gods is a great dude. Glad we had him on. Will be good to have him on in the future and more and chat and hang out more. Yeah. So, I mean, this is pretty unusual. I mean, most of the slabs I'm buying are more in like the $9 to $10 to $11 range. And most of them aren't like quite as good as that, but. Let's see. Question. Jason of J&J's asks, what do you think about Pokemon one-upping themselves with every new set? Will it kill all sealed collection value? VMAX Climax outdoes Vivid, Fusion Strike, and previous characters? Yeah. So it's something that, for people who've been watching this channel, know that I've been talking about this for like a year and a half with Modern. And it's one of the dangers of Modern Pokemon is that with each new set, it sort of competes with the old set and dilutes the market a bit and the amount of money that can be spent on these things. We really saw that, I think, with Shining Fates. Now we had Hidden Fates, which was massively, massively printed, and we had Shining Fates, which is massively, massively printed. It's why we have a million of these like baby Shining cards. I think these baby Shining cards are phenomenal, really cool cards. Love them. But that's why you see them going for 50 cents to $1, because there are just so many of them. And you're going to have more of those baby Shinies, I think, in the future, in future sets. Potentially, maybe not. Maybe they'll end it there, and find some different variation, or have like a gold Shining card, as we talk about on this channel. But they're going to keep adding more and more of that stuff. They might eventually go into serialized cards. It's part of why, particularly things like those alternative arts that were so hot and going for like $1,000, some cards, or many hundreds of dollars, like $1,000, $1,500 in like a PSA 10, and like many, many hundreds of dollars raw. It's people who don't understand how these markets work investing in those, and some people who I think want those for collections. But I personally have a hard time believing that a lot of people who are paying $300, $400, $500 or $1,500, they're either extremely rich and money doesn't matter to them, or they're collectors, or they're, I think, investors, or they're interested in making some money and they're interested in being in that hot item. It's just sort of that momentum investor versus value investor issue. So, I think that it's going to be a thing. It's why I would be I think there's a lot of opportunity in Modern right now, given how cheap things are. And I do think that there's going to be, for certain, rainbow rare and up secret rares, there's going to be some value, and that some of these cards, they're not going to be able to do kind of what level X's, for example, did or prime cards, or like the, the plasma, like secret rares, or the, SL cards. They're not gonna be able to do what those did because there were so few of those, but they are going to have, I think, some movement up eventually once it all gets absorbed. And because so many businesses and so many people who couldn't afford it way over leverage themselves on Pokemon, and way over leverage themselves by like grading tons of cards of CGC, there are tons of people just fire selling things, just trying to get out of them. Like they're losing a little bit of money on each card they're selling, but they just want to get out of them. I think that there's probably some opportunity there. And they're really cool cards, and they're extremely affordable. So for collectors too, it's just fun. It's fun that you can like pick up some really cool cards that are really good cards for your collection, and graded cards for your collection at a very cheap value. I also feel like there is a irrational negativity right now towards graded cards from like, I saw a video about it from Rudy and some other people just kind of talking about, I think stores don't like graded cards, and just spreading accurate information, but kind of overall, I think, misleading information about people's actual interest in graded cards and where the market's at and where the market will be in the future. So all of that, I think, is just adding fuel to the fire of like, it's great. It's actually a great time to be buying those. I do have to say that like Rudy has been wrong quite a bit recently. And I feel like he seems to be, he makes a video about how like Pokemon is changed forever. And a lot of YouTubers did. Then makes a video about how like the Pokemon prices are great and they're going to sustain themselves. Another video, then makes a video saying like it's crashing and that you shouldn't touch any singles or graded cards, even though the graded cards are literally at the floor right now. And a lot of singles are at the absolute floor, and it's a much better time to buy them now than it was. I think he doesn't really understand the Pokemon market. I'm just going to throw it out there. And how could he? He's from Magic, and Magic doesn't have graded cards like modern graded cards. So to that market, it's weird and very different. It's a whole very different thing. So that's my personal opinion. We shall see. But I did this years ago, and it worked extremely well. I don't think it's going to work as well. I'm not going to see the same types of returns I did in the past, but I'm still going to see, I think, very nice returns, and also have cards that I can afford that are not going to, stress me out, and that I enjoy, even if I can't sell them, because I'm only buying things that I like. Okay. Katie Lown says, any tips on how to buy ungraded raw cards on eBay? So I buy most of my ungraded cards from actually TCGplayer. I usually wait for their like 15% off, 20% off, ideally sales, and I buy a bunch. Because if you buy the near mint ones, particularly modern near mint, you're usually going to get a decent percentage, like 30 maybe percent, roughly speaking, depending on the set, depending on the card, that are going to be sort of like 9, 10, maybe 40%, like even 10 quality, with a bunch of kind of like 9s mixed in, and really only 30% like definitely below a 9 type quality for modern. For vintage, it's generally near mint is going to be more accurate about like a PSA 7, or even lower in some cases. You will get some bad cards, but if you can continue to buy from like the same TCG sellers who have done well for you in the past, and don't look through their stuff and like send out the good ones and then sell the off-centered, this or that. I keep a list if I can, that I update on that. But for eBay, it's really tough because for me, pictures don't like, it's very easy to not show flaws in a picture. And it's so annoying to buy stuff and then have to return it a million times, particularly when you're dealing on the low end and it's not that much money and you have to fight over like who pays for the shipping, and, it's just irritating. Obviously, if it's through eBay, then you're, the shipping will be refunded and recovered through eBay. But I've had to fight it in other areas and with other things before, and it's been annoying. But yeah, I generally, I guess the best tips, like particularly if you're looking for like vintage stuff, is you want to look for stuff where the cards look like they're in a very clean binder. They're very well sleeved. They're in multiple sleeves. It looks like someone who really takes pride in it, knows what it is, cares about it. Also someone who ideally doesn't have graded cards or isn't interested in graded cards, because if they are, they probably would have just graded them themselves. All that being said, like people know that and they stage their stuff like that to make it look like they put like really beat up cards. I've seen this. Like people will put beat up cards in a card saver with one of those tabs to make it look like it's like ready to be graded, but it's like literally damaged and beat to hell. And, you know, it's a little borderline whether that's, you know, how ethical that is of the seller, but you have to be careful of all that stuff. But generally speaking, you want to, you know, you can reach out and ask, you know, is this really mint? You know, how did you come by this collection? Is this your personal collection? You know, too many questions can really bother the person, but that can all generally be good. Jake, can you jump on HTWA's question? Let me see, guys, where that question is. I don't see it. Was it up quite a bit? I don't see HTWA's question here. So sorry about that. If you want to write the question below, I'd be happy to answer. Maro Ponce says, how do you feel about the Japanese unlimited e-reader market? I think it's probably about correctly priced. It's very unclear in the long run how popular Japanese cards are going to be compared to English. You know, particularly with e-readers and into the original Nintendo EX era, unlimited in many cases is actually rarer than first edition. For those who don't know, on the Japanese side, you actually have first edition and unlimited. So there's some interesting kind of stuff that can go on there with you know, completionist collectors who want both the first edition and the unlimited. It's why some of the unlimited have sold for really high prices in PSA 10. So there's some kind of interesting stuff that can happen there with prices, but overall, probably in a decent place. I think the e-reader market in general, if I were like it, you know, there's a lot of good buys right now. There's a lot of stuff I'm looking at, but e-readers are generally something I'm always looking to pick up if I feel like I can get in really, really nicely under market or at a soft point in the market, you know, or trying to fill holes in my collection or get doubles or triples of cards that I really love, like that type of thing. Always going to be buying. I'm going to be buying e-readers for my entire time in this hobby. I can tell you that much, because I love the art on those, and I love the history and the rarity and the fact that they're sort of like the end of WotC. So Retrograded says, why buy Chilling Reign booster boxes? I'm interested to know why I did it, but you. Oh, I'm interested. Because of the price point and because I love opening Pokemon, and because I think that at $72, $73 roughly a box in between there, it's just such a good price point that, you know, I don't know, maybe I'll give some away. I can open some up together, we can hang out. I can just open some up privately. I didn't buy like tons, you know. I think I maybe bought, no, I'm not even going to say, but not like many, just like, you know, a couple handfuls, like a handful or so. You know, I think Chilling Reign, I've always liked the birds. If you look at a set like Chilling Reigns and you see what the card values, like the individual singles are going for, and you compare it to the booster box price, the cards are going for a lot more. Like, and this goes to the fact that like most people, I think, engaging in these markets are brand new to the Pokemon market. They don't know what prices were in the past. But for example, when a lot of these booster boxes, some good examples are going to be like Breakthrough and Breakpoint. Let's take Breakthrough from the Sun and Moon block. Breakthrough was selling at about 95. I think it peaked to about $100, $110. That was the best selling box at that point. Actually, it was the highest one from that sort of block, from that era. It just seemed to have been other than Ultra Prism for a while, which was even shorter printed, but Breakthrough ticked up. The secret rare like Mewtwo's from that set, which were the most expensive chase cards, I think were like $15 to $20 each only. And now you have a set where like, and that was selling for like $90, $95 a box, just for people to understand. And now you have a set in Chilling Reign where people are so panicked about the booster boxes. And I think you have so many stores who have over hoarded them that somehow you have like 5 or 6 cards selling above $20, including, I think, some selling for 50, 60, 70. I could be wrong, but I think somewhere in there. And somehow that box can't even get above $72. It's very interesting. So, I mean, I think that probably the singles are very, very overvalued. Alternative arts, I've been very, very accurate in my predictions this past year. I've been very, very accurate because I've had a lot of time in the market and because I see how a lot of these modern cards and prices they tend to go to. I remember I made a video a long time ago talking about like Darkness Ablaze Charizard and how it was going for like $250. And I made a comment like, I wouldn't pay more than $50 for that card. I think that's the type of price point that a card like that should settle at, given the amount of it probably someday. In a normal market, I said it wouldn't, and it wasn't necessarily going to anytime soon, but understanding like the flourish type price points and the normal price points that these cards should hit when the booster boxes are selling for 90, 100. And that's because the price of the booster box and the price of the cards inside should have a certain relationship to them. Or stores and other people can do massive booster box openings, which will lower the prices of the singles and raise the prices of the boxes when they do those mass box openings. And so something's got to give there. Much more attractive to buy the $72 Chilling Reigns booster box than to buy the singles. Are both not the best place to put my money? It's possible. There's so many good opportunities right now. I'm being contacted a lot about buying collections. And I'm very picky right now in terms of what I'm buying. Again, I think it's a lot of people who have really over leveraged themselves and need to sell. So that's my complete answer for that. Trump, since PSA may take years to go back to $15 to $20 per card, do you think it's better to go with CGC for a quick flip? Yeah, I would. The grading market right now, I would not be grading cards and trying to sell them. I would be buying graded cards and then buying singles, grading them, and then holding them probably until a lot of the supply is eaten up. And that could be a whole year. That's what I believe personally. I'll let you know if my opinion changes on that. That's what I'm personally doing. I just think that part of the market doesn't make sense anymore. I really don't think Pokemon, like, this is a good market or time to be flipping things anymore. I think it's a time to more be buying things you really like, holding things, getting things at a good deal, being patient, slowly waiting for things to sort of stabilize in certain areas. In other areas, prices have already, and again, in Patreon this month, we'll go into it in more detail, but in Patreon, I'm going to show how like certain things there's not that much of it on the market. Prices are already starting to stabilize around it. Other things, I'm still seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of listings of the same item over and over and over again. And it's just hard to grab all that supply. I also, Trump, I think that there's a decent chance that PSA will not take years to get back to $15 to $20. I think it could happen sooner than people expect. And as far as going with CGC is starting to make up ground in terms of the prices that CGC cards are getting, but it's still not quite at the level of PSA. So I would not be, I don't really think there's, and there are always exceptions, and you have to do the math for yourself to figure out, is it worth it? And can I make money on this card? But I think for the most part, that's not where the money is, where the move is. Manny says, what do you think about Topps Project 70? Not familiar. Manny, I'm sorry. I'm slipping, I guess. Topps Project 70. I'll have to look up what that is after if you want to tell me below. So I'm not sure. It looks like I think it's probably sports, right, Manny? But I'm not sure what it is now. I more follow the vintage sports market a little bit and a little bit of the modern basketball. But I'm definitely not super plugged in over there. Brevity Gaming TCGs and Gaming says, Jake, have that one dude who collects Weiss come back on. Not sure you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about Nate. Definitely we'll have Nate on again. You know, crazy knowledgeable, that guy. I think eventually he might start a Patreon, and I will definitely be signing up for his Patreon. I can tell you that much. I just lost my place. Sorry. So another thing that I think is important, and I hear people saying like modern booster boxes, they're not going to be valuable, and the concern there. What I look for right now, people's panic over it and negativity is what makes me attracted to it and makes me want to buy these things. The problem is there's so much supply right now that I am looking for very, very below market and really good deals, because I know that supply is going to continue to put downward pressure for the foreseeable future, although things can change quickly. Whether that's modern booster boxes or modern graded cards or modern raw cards. There's going to be a time, like what you're looking for is you're looking for negativity and low supply. And so items that have a lot of negativity and items that have very low supply. So like Level X's for a long time had a lot of negativity. Primes had a lot of negativity. Even original Nintendo EX era, outside of the Gold Stars and the EX cards, had a lot of negativity. Top Zone, Cardos, a lot of these things had a lot of negativity around them. And when they were actually like really good products that are historic and important to the hobby and a big part of certain eras in the hobby, and had a lot of first Pokemon, you know, that are important and fairly early in what will eventually be a very, very long history of Pokemon. And right, so there's that low supply and that kind of potential demand that's there, that there's just sort of like an irrational sort of negativity to these items. The problem with modern right now is it's massively printed. There's probably some, and I still think that there's irrational exuberance, to be completely honest, about a lot of modern. There's a lot of guys and a lot of people that need to be less exuberant, more realistic and pragmatic before I feel really like these markets are undervalued again, underappreciated. But it doesn't mean that I'm not buying some things and I'm looking for some deals. And you know, as I said, I am buying a number of slabs and some booster boxes at good prices. But there will come a point potentially where Pokemon then reacts and stops printing as much. That type of era will be an era that might be a good time to get back in. But a lot of people may realize that, and then they may get into it too much and start investing again, and then Pokemon may print the hell out of it and reprint it a bunch. So it's just not an easy thing to predict. You say BS says problem with TCG players that most sellers don't ship outside of the US. Yeah, that is a problem for people. People talking about CGC. I will see you in the Discord after this. Pokeknowledge says, Jake, when are we going to connect, talk some Pokemon? Whenever you want, man. I'm always down to hang out and talk. It's reach out to me on Instagram and we can set up a time. Katie says, thanks a ton for all those tips. I never thought of buying modern cards from TCGplayer and getting a good percentage that would be 9s and 10s, particularly when you're buying from LGS stores who don't grade. So there are a lot of like more individuals who what they do is they buy lots of singles and then they pick out the good ones, and then they throw the bad ones, the ones that won't grade 10s and maybe not even 9s, back on TCGplayer. But if you can target sort of the LGS stores who often don't grade and just sell their fresh out of pack gem mint in many cases cards, yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. Basic Trainer says, hi, Jake. For the P2CC blog, what specifically are you bidding on? And even more specifically, how much is your max bids on those? Thanks for the awesome content as always. Keeping that private. Let's see. A lot of good, smart comments from people here. I enjoy reading through these. Yeah, interesting back and forths on some of the alt arts. Yeah, so talking about like the rarity of alt arts, yeah. So certain sets, particularly sets like Evolving Skies, or sets that there were a lot of alt arts, and if depending on how much of that set is printed, which is a big depends, there could be as little as like 15,000 to 50,000 realistically of some of those alt arts in the world, which would put them at the same level of rarity as like Misaki promos, to give you an example. Now, the attrition rate on the Misaki promos, first of all, most of the Misaki promos, pretty much all of them, have a bend in the back because of the way they were distributed and handed out. And although a lot of these alternative arts are hard to grade, still most of them are like 8s, 9s, and 10s for sure. And a lot more of them are 9s and 10s, and everyone is keeping really good care of them. So it's a very different situation. Those are also, a lot of those are in Japan. A lot of those have been lost and destroyed, the Misaki cards. So, but it is interesting to think about how like there is some rarity, particularly when those cards are hard to pull and there are a bunch of them in a set. So to pull each individual one is difficult. So, but the same thing is true for rainbow rares in a number of sets during the Burning Shadows era. Like this is what people don't think about. Like those rainbow rares, which I'm buying in some cases for $9 graded, $12 graded. These I'm buying PSA. There have been a few buys that I've made recently, and I don't like talking about specifics. I don't want to create competition for myself, to be completely honest, but like their booster box is the Sun and Moon booster box is selling for $350. Okay. One of the rainbow rares, which is the card you're trying to pull from a lot of these booster boxes. Okay. One of the rainbow rares, which are 1 in 72. So packs. So you have to open 2 of these booster boxes. So that's 7, let's pick a lot of these booster boxes selling for $300, $350, $400. Okay. I'm buying it already graded for $12, $13, $14. The grading fee alone right now is $25 at CGC right this second. And I'm getting a rainbow rare, CGC, 9 for $12, $13, $14, let's just say. Okay. And I have been for, I've probably done that 4 or 5 times in the last few weeks. And each of those, just to show that those numbers. So I'm now it's those CGC card prices will come back down in terms of the grading fees. But even if those grading fees come all the way down to $10, I'm buying that rainbow rare for $5 or $4 or $3 in some cases. And the booster box to pull it out of, which is very hard to pull it out of because there are a lot of different alternatives, and then people get into, well, alternative arts are much better than rainbow rares. Maybe, I don't know how those things will be looked at. Rainbow rares are older and they're going to have, come before, and there might be a bit, and they're going to be in a period where maybe there was quite a bit less product printed versus this period. I'm not sure how these things will age versus each other. It's just hard to predict those types of things. But that just shows how, from a supply demand fundamental perspective and from a price point of like how much the boxes are going for versus me buying $73 Chilling Reign booster boxes, a Burning Shadows booster box going for $350 or whatever, and some of the other booster boxes going for $500. It shows you how much value I'm getting in a purchase like that. and that gives you guys a little bit of a look into kind of like how my mind thinks about these markets and looks at these markets. Hopefully that's helpful. Pokemon Classics is here. Yo, Pokemon Classics, we need to do a video together, my friend. I've been meaning to reach out to you for a long time. Maybe the three of us should do a video if you guys are down at some point. Poke Knowledge, Pokemon Classics, and myself. That'd be fun. So I'm going to go for like 10 more minutes, guys, and then I'm going to call it a night because I have some other stuff I need to get to. HCW says, I see all modern set cards becoming sub $100 within a few years, and thus the boxes will never increase in price because they contain nothing much of value. So as time goes on, the booster box prices will separate to some extent from the cards inside to some extent if the booster boxes become fairly rare. Now, that's going to require a lot of them to be opened up over time, which if the prices don't continue to go up on those booster boxes, and if they actually come down, more will be opened up because at $200, $250, $300, or even $150 a booster box, to reminisce on a set that's 5-6 years old, that's fun. That's probably worth it for most people. As that happens, it will become a rare item. Over many years, you could see those booster boxes really becoming separate from the PSA cards. So even though there's a lot of those cards out, there's not a lot of the sealed product left. So it is possible. Again, nobody really knows. Highly speculative, and who the hell knows when that's going to happen and what the price points are going to look like along the way. But that's the basic dynamic. Jason of J&J says, Jake, do you like Digimon? I'm surprised how cheap the vintage packs are. That's one of the markets I am really not looking into at all, just to be honest. I just have too much on my plate. But eventually I would like to. I liked the Digimon cartoon. I just don't have this, nearly the passion for that as I did for like Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z or Harry Potter or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. Kevin Clear says, when the market goes left, you go right. Yep. That's often the case. Gumbrave says, people can't simultaneously be holding all of it and taking single price with supply. I think we have a fairly healthy balance. Lots of people are ripping. Yeah, I mean, definitely lots of people are ripping battle styles and I think which is what you're talking about here, and also Chilling Reign. People are also, Gumbrave, ripping so much when we think about it because the booster box prices are so low and people can't sell them because no one's buying them, unless they're willing to sell like super low, like $80 or under now, one. And then take the hit on the fees and all that sort of stuff. And so people have this box and they're saying, well, it's probably not going to go up for a long time. I don't want to wait. I'm just going to open it. Maybe I'll get a big hit inside and I'll be able to sell that for even more than the box, these types of things, or just have fun, $80 fun of just ripping it. So when those prices of those boxes are low, you're definitely going to have more people ripping them. What percentage, who knows? And then Pokemon can always reprint more if people rip them all, so. And Gumbrave also makes a point about making a lot of good points here about competitive decks corresponding with battle styles. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of that works out with those booster boxes. TCG Art House says, Jake, have you gotten into FAB at all? If not, what criteria might attract your interest in collecting or investing there? So yeah, it's not super appealing to me. I'm really getting more into Magic first. I haven't really been that into Magic historically. And I feel like Magic is in some ways an easier jump and more natural jump to Flesh and Blood. So, but with Flesh and Blood, I think that it's a beautiful concept, extremely well-made game, from what I hear, like an extremely fun game. From what I hear, I haven't played it myself, so I don't really know. But and then really good lore, beautifully well-made cards, beautiful art. I think that if the game stays strong and there's a good chance that a lot of those short printed sets will appreciate over time. And people should just, if you like it and you believe in it, they should just be calm. I think that people are obviously everywhere speculating way too much, and people are way spending outside of their means, and they're putting in way too much money from a percentage basis of their income into these boxes. And that's why there's so much anxiety about the future. Whereas I think if you take a calmer approach to it, it's like, there's a lot of upside there. But thinking of it as sort of like a gradual thing that you're going to hold, you're going to enjoy, you're going to open some of it, display some of it. I have a few booster boxes, Flesh and Blood booster boxes, very few, just a couple. I buy some of everything usually, if I can get it at very cheap values. I think I got Monarch at 140, Monarch first edition at 140, because I felt like that was probably a fairly low point. And I've been watching it for a while, kind of dropped down to 200, and then Rudy like trying to buy it all up. And it just seemed like there was more downward pressure and that there's a lot out there. Although I was tempted to buy it at 200 because Rudy is often right about these things because he's very connected. And, I don't think he knows very much about Pokemon, but in the Magic world and the Flesh and Blood world, I definitely listened to Rudy a lot. And I felt like he might have had some info about like there wasn't like he was buying up so much, and there wasn't that much more like store and investor speculator supply out there. But clearly there was a bunch more, which pushed it all the way back down to 150, 140. And then I bought I think the Tails box at like 75, 80, Tails first edition. I bought a couple. So that's the price points that I decided to buy those at. Again, I think it's fun. It's cool. Maybe I'll open it up someday. Maybe just hold it, display it in the background. I think they're nice looking boxes. That's my take on all of that. I'm not super engaged in that market, so I don't really know like what the, how expensive, like I'm sure that some of those cards, I think they were selling for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, like the biggest chase cards. So I'm wondering if they've fallen. I imagine they have, but I'm not following it too closely. Kayak Bacon says Topps Pokemon is overrated in terms of current price. I don't follow it too closely, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not a huge fan of Topps. I do like Topps Chrome and some of Topps Chrome. The regular Topps, I really don't like. Sorry, but it's very subjective. Again, at the it's if you like it, go for it. A lot of good comments here. I think I'm going to have to end it for today, guys, because I have to take a little break because I've been nonstop since this morning, and have a little bite to eat and then get ready for the Patreon hangout tonight. So I will see a lot of you guys there. For anyone who's interested, Patreon link is in the bio. Help support me and just continue, give me that incentive and support to continue making this content and hopefully helping stabilize and be somewhat of a even though it's a very small channel, somewhat of a stabilizing force in a small part of the market for people. So that is my goal, and I appreciate all the continued support in that. If you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel, all of that helps as well. Got a lot planned for the new year. I'm moving in February, and then I'm actually going to have like a real, place to shoot these videos, hopefully for the first time. And hopefully do a camera setup where I can actually show cards again and do more videos where maybe we open things up and talk about the specific product. We look more at my collection again and talk about specific areas. I know it's been very little showing cards on camera for a long time, and I'm, been collecting a lot, spending a lot of time in non-Pokemon hobbies too. And I'm definitely would be excited to show off a lot of that, and just continuing to share and hang out with people and continue to meet people. So Poke Knowledge, Pokemon Classics, also Rock Pokemon. If any of you guys, hit me up on Instagram, be fun. Maybe I haven't talked to any of you guys, and it'd be fun to have you guys on this channel or to go on your channel, whatever you'd rather, and talk Pokemon. All right. So, appreciate it, and talk to you all again soon. Take care.